This Thrive Loud episode is brought to you by Hinge Consulting, Allscope, and Animoto.
Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Wait a second. Lou Diamond? Sounds like a motivational country singer if you ask me.
Now I'm getting really excited. Okay, this is the part where I'm going to get loud.
Holy crap, here we go.
I like telling stories.
I learn best through experiences.
Everything I do is because of everything I did.
Talk about having maximum impact while having a ton of fun.
When you can net through that, what you do leave behind for your listener will have more impact.
Wow, bring it on.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you the author of the book Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. She is the host of the weekly podcast This Organized Life and the founder of Simply Be Organized, where she speaks, teaches, and works one-on-one with clients to help them reduce clutter and increase productivity. Thrive Loud listeners, we are going to get our shit together on today's program with Laurie Palau. Laurie, how are you today?
I am doing awesome. How are you?
I am spectacular. Laurie and I met very recently. We were in Philadelphia at the big podcast movement, actually, was where we met. And we have some mutual friends from her neighbors and other places that we know, and connected right out of the gate because Laurie is not only charming, but cool. And we also got to sit next to each other during those information sessions. And she, like me, would be like, yeah, this isn't worth my time. Let's go.
Oh, I think people were rolling their eyes at us as we were sitting there for sure, because we were like the two kids in the back of the classroom that were like whispering and passing notes. Which
led to this, because I said, this woman is so great to chat with and so much fun, and she has a really great story. And I thought it would be spectacular to have you on the program so that the Thrive Loud fans could hear from you. You're welcome. So, Laurie, I think the way to do this is, okay, so you have a unique skill set that you've focused your life on, and that's getting organized. How did all of this come together? When did you recognize that this was your superpower?
Okay, so I don't know, and I'm obviously going to be dating myself, but back in the day when Oprah had her show, and she would always talk about what's your passion? Follow your passion. And I would sit there and I was like, I have no passion. I have no talents. I have no skills. I have no idea. I'm doomed. So I went to school and became a communications major because, whenever you don't know what you're going to do, that's what everyone did. So I said, I don't know what to do. And in school, I was just always very organized. And I think it had to do with just knowing that I liked routine. I like to have an expectation. I don't like to leave anything for chance, but I never really thought of that as a marketable skill. It was just something that I did. And then fast forward to my adulthood, and my husband traveled a ton when my kids were little. I was basically a single mom with a paycheck. And so I developed all of these systems and strategies to be able to function and keep my act together. Are we allowed to curse? I guess we are.
I started out with a curse right out of the gate, so yes.
So in order for me to keep my shit together, I had to have a plan. And I was an executive recruiter for 15 years. So I always work with people, and I like to find out what motivated them and what inspired them for change. And so I wound up transferring down the road a lot of those skills into working one-on-one with my clients. But I took a few years off between having my kids, and I would see my stay-at-home mom friends struggling with what I would feel are some of the simplest tasks. And I would just go in there and help provide solutions for them to make their lives simpler, just simple everyday things. And I went back into recruiting when my kids were in preschool, and did that for several years. And then in 2009, at the height of the recession, like any smart person, I decided to start a luxury business because that's what you do when everyone's getting laid off. But a girlfriend of mine at the time, who's an interior designer, she had a few clients that wanted her to design all these beautiful spaces to basically mask their clutter. And she came to me and said, would you mind just coming on a couple of these consultations with me and just give them some tips and strategies? This is before I had Simply Be Organized, and just give them some ideas of where they can start, because I don't want to get involved in that. I just want to design pretty spaces. So I was like, sure. And so I went in there with my tell it like it is approach, but very nicely gave them some, here's where you could think about some, solutions, and gave them some actionable tips. And it resonated with them. So from there, I said, well, maybe this is actually something I could make into a business. So I started just networking with friends and family. And from there, it quickly grew and evolved and went from working one-on-one with clients to speaking to blogging and yada, yada, yada. Fast forward, I went into the podcast world because I very much like chatting and I very much do not like being on video. So podcasting is perfect for me. And between the launch of the book and the podcast, I now have able to really connect with people on a way that I'm so grateful for, because I'm so limited when I'm just one-on-one with clients. And This has given me an opportunity to really share my tips and strategies on a much broader scale. So that's kind of my jam.
So looking at your jam here and trying to understand what are the most common issues that your clients have regarding their clutter? Is it their stuff? Is it the way that they approach things? Or is it just a combination of all of it together? And I guess my real question is, how do you start working to get somebody organized?
Okay, so I'm going to try to make this short and sweet.
Okay.
So what I have found is that the way to really make change is understanding the why, understanding your root cause. It's no different than saying, I have a headache, I have a headache, I have a headache, and you keep treating it with Tylenol or Motrin. But until you get to the root of the problem, oh, I need glasses. Oh, I have migraines. Whatever the case is, you're not going to be able to really truly solve the problem. So somebody can go in there and fix a space, but if you don't really figure out why you do the things that you do, why you have those patterns of behavior, you're just going to find yourself back in the same pattern that you were before.
Right.
So I like to pretend I'm a therapist. I tell that to everybody. So I ask a lot of questions. And through doing this for so long, I've actually developed what I call like this integrated clutter model. So I basically take clutter and break it into 3 different areas. Physical clutter, which is the stuff that you see. Emotional clutter, which is guilt or fear, the stuff that holds you back from getting rid of your stuff. Or calendar clutter, which is really inefficient use of your time or not prioritizing things. So by asking questions and observing somebody in their natural habitat and, talking to them, it's pretty quick for me to determine where their dominant clutter source is. And so I talk about this in the book quite a bit because I think that for a lot of people, it's a game changer. People don't like labels, but yet I think there's a lot of power in having a label because it identifies and it allows you to disarm it, where it's coming from. So I can immediately look at somebody's space and say, yes, well, your problem is you like to shop, but you don't like to get rid of stuff. So it doesn't matter how organized your space is. If you keep bringing more stuff in, then you're going to have a volume issue. So that's more physical clutter. If you have trouble parting with stuff because you have emotional attachments to them, then that's what your pitfall is going to hold you back. Or if you're not home to do the stuff and you're not willing to outsource it to somebody else, clutter is going to naturally breed because it's no different than saying, I don't have time to cut my lawn, but I'm not going to hire somebody to do it. It's just going to keep growing. So the first thing that I do with any client when I'm talking to them or when I'm speaking is to start asking these questions to try to determine where do you think your pitfalls are. And it's amazing how quickly people will start going, oh yeah, I have emotional clutter. Oh yeah, I know that this is this is where I struggle. So that is always the starting point for anybody.
I like it. And it's a very simplified approach. And there's something that's really unique about what you're doing. While what you are doing might be geared towards an individual in their home, or like you say, a stay-at-home mom and trying to organize their life. What you've just described is actually a management challenge that many young managers or people that have moved into taking on newer responsibilities, or even entrepreneurs who started a company out of their basement and then now all of a sudden had to lead and manage people, have as well. This approach, have you been able to mirror what you've been helping one-on-one into organizations as well?
I have a little bit, yes. So, but more on the speaking scale. So I do corporate speaking and I speak to groups and organizations. I don't do as much hands-on organizing in businesses, just from a scale standpoint, but I think it is relevant. And I've applied it actually in schools as well, because with younger kids, and you and I, our kids are around the same age, but there's so many expectations on kids, not just with grades, but with extracurriculars and everything that's going on. More and more kids are struggling with calendar clutter just because they just have more that they're trying to accomplish than given hours in the day will allow. And so by teaching these strategies early on will help them hopefully down the road as they grow, and also just to navigate this landscape that we're in, this 24/7 landscape that we're in now, of how to prioritize things. Because, I really call it more, priority management versus, time management. It's really hard to, to manage that whole process. But whether you're talking about decluttering your office and the physical stuff in it, or just prioritizing time to get everything you want done as an entrepreneur, wearing all the many hats that you have, it's important to be able to identify what in your world is clutter. What does that consist of?
So here's an interesting question. I find this interesting because I've been always known as a connector. And when I learned that other people don't think the way that I do, in the way that you'd go to connect other individuals, initially it was surprising to me. How surprising was it to you, someone that's that organized, at how unorganized or disorganized many of your clients or many people in the world are?
So, not as shocking as you would think, because and there are certain things that I look at people that if I am a certain way, because I too am a connector, and I also try to put other people first. And I'm just, I'm like Mother Teresa right here. And when other people aren't like that, I always scratch my head and go, why aren't they like that? But when it comes to organizing, I think it's, for a lot of people, it's a learned skill. For me, I joke and say I was born with the organizing gene, but I recognize that it is a learned skill. It is a behavior, and it is a pattern that people fall into. So if you were never taught those skills, if I see somebody that's really disorganized or their spouse is disorganized, after I ask some initial questions, I'll ask them, what was the environment like where you grew up? And that is really telling, because somebody will say, my mom threw everything away, so that's why I hold on to everything. Or our house was so cluttered, and so that they take comfort in that clutter, or they go the other direction. So I'm actually not really judgy when it comes to that. Now, I don't know about other areas, but when it comes to the walking into somebody's space, that's struggling, I feel badly, and I want to help be a problem solver for them. But I don't look at them and go, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Why don't you just put like with like? Like, it just, their brain doesn't comprehend that way. Just like I'm not a super creative person, and, somebody might come up with an idea that is, really creative. And I'm like, oh, I would have never thought of that. Just not how my brain works.
When you look at physical clutter, I want to talk about this because I've seen this, and you and I have chatted. We actually know people that do similar things to what you do. And being able to look at a situation and not only get rid of the stuff that isn't needed, because some people tend to hoard or hold on to things, the ability to actually spatially recognize what works within a certain defined space. That's actually a unique skill.
Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you?
That's what the program's
about.
This
thing. Okay. So I have this joke with my husband, because I like to be like an expert in everything, which clearly I'm not, but I like to pretend that I am. And and he always jokes that on my business card, I should put spatial relations expert, whether it's putting leftovers in a Tupperware or figuring out the best layout to maximize a space. My brain just goes there. So I'm like, oh, this could be so much more efficient if you just did blah, 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 blah. And people are like, really? So yeah, I think that there is just an innate ability to be able to do that. And I think that that's why people in whatever your field is of expertise, that's why it's important to outsource. Like, I know that I'm great with the inside of the house, but I struggle with like landscaping. So I will call somebody in and say, what should I put where? I don't even know, so I know where my strengths are and I know where my weaknesses are. And I will immediately, instead of trying to like waste time and money trying to figure it all out, I would rather just go right to the source and have somebody that knows what they're doing.
I want to jump into this question, which just ran through my head, because I was going to ask you what was the worst mess you ever had to try to organize, but I want to throw a little variable on top of this. Okay. What was a mess that you had to organize, helped get that person organized, but yet in a very quick amount of time, they reverted back? Have you seen a lot of that? And what do you do to try to avoid them falling into bad, disorganized habits?
Okay. So yes, I have seen that. And early on in my career, like now I've done, like with anybody that kind of hones their craft, right? You learn what works, what doesn't, how to qualify people differently. But early on in my career, I was referred to this woman, and she had recently moved to the area and she needed help unpacking and getting her new house situated. Seemed like a perfect fit. And she's lovely, but it was very evident early on that she just kind of wanted a friend. And so everything that I would do, she would kind of half listen, but then she would kind of go back to the way that she was. And after us working together for, I was there like once or twice a week, for about a month or so. And I had a very candid conversation with her and said, these are changes that if you want to have it be a sustainable impact, you're going to have to follow through on these. And she kind of didn't want to, and she was okay with it. So, I said, listen, I don't need you to pay me to be my friend, and it wasn't really a good use of my time. But what that lesson taught me was a really important one, is that people have to have the buy-in. People have to want it. It's just like hiring a personal trainer and going through the motions and then leaving and running through the drive-thru at McDonald's. What's the point? And so if you're going to commit, and if you're going to commit time and you're going to commit money, then it should be something that you want to change. And I'm just very direct with people. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't work with hoarders. It's probably one of my most common questions is, do you work with hoarders? I don't. Because again, as much as I like to pretend I'm a psychologist, I'm not properly trained, but also I move at a pretty decent pace. And so again, if you have somebody that's like, I'm in it, I'm ready, I'm over struggling with whatever the fill in the blank is, closet, kitchen, garage, attic, basement, whatever, then let's go and, we'll make it happen, and I'll teach you what I'm doing along the way so that you can maintain it. But if somebody really isn't serious about it, then I can pretty much determine that it's not going to be a good fit off the bat. And they could probably find somebody that does what I do for less money, No,
it makes perfect sense. And I also agree that I love the fact that what you're not good at, whether it's the outdoor stuff or if this person is literally a hoarder and they need professional work that is much more above and beyond. What you're going to be good at, and you focus on that sweet spot. Look, that's a skill in itself. That's basically organizing the type of clients you go after. I will tell you, I've worked with companies who have a core focus, and often they will try to grow their business or try new business development areas that goes out of their main sweet spot. It's too far of a stretch. And that's not that different from being organized in your life. It's being organized in the way you think about your business. So I'm marrying those two together because I do believe that same way of thinking, the same simply the organized ways that you think about are very applicable to everyone's everyday life, not just inside. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And not that I coined this phrase by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm like my big thing is stay in your lane. Like I know my lane. And when I was recruiting, I recruited in a very niche specific field. And if people said, oh, well, could you recruit this or could you recruit that? You see this like shiny object and it's very tempting, especially with somebody that comes from a sales background to want to try to go outside of your wheelhouse because you think there's, this prospect of more money and more connections and blah, 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 blah. But I always knew for myself that there was increased credibility and more increased productivity for me and the client if I just stuck to what I knew and what I was good at, as opposed to trying to do everything. And I feel that that holds true in the world of organizing. But yes, it's totally applicable to any area of your life.
So I want to ask you right now, you have a podcast show and I can tell that you like it. I know that because when we spoke at the conference, talk about what you speak about on the program, This Organized Life, because I think it's got an interesting take onto what you do.
So in a nutshell, it's 20-minute show. I keep them all short because I feel that people need to be able to check things off their to-do lists, even podcasts. So I like them short and sweet. And it's a glimpse into my not so perfect life. So I talk about the authenticity of things that I struggle with as a parent. I have guests on the show. My earlier episodes, I didn't have as many guests on. And then I was like, okay, people don't want to just hear me talk. So we need to bring guests on. So quickly into the show, I started to have a lot of different guests on, and I've got people that are either product experts or service experts or have some sort of valuable tie-in to some way that people can improve the organization and productivity of their life. And that's what we talk about. And again, sometimes, our shows are more specific to topics of, holiday organizing or something seasonal, but most of our stuff is pretty evergreen. So you could pop in and listen wherever. And we've really been developing a very nice community of people because it's not preachy. I'm very down to earth and authentic. What you see is what you get. I wrote a book called Hot Mess for a reason. And the style is very much myself. It's very much who I am and conversational, very similar to your style of your show. And I think people relate to that because I'm not sitting there in a judgy, preachy way saying this is what you should do or everything should be color-coded and perfect because that's not how life is.
Which is ironic, right? Because some of the work might require you to come up with the result of being color-coded and that organized in the way you do it, which is kind of funny. I just think that's a unique split of you.
And I love me a good color code. I'm not going to lie. But I also realize that, life, we go through seasons in our lives and there's different points that we're going to be busier and things are going to be more hectic. And I think for me, organizing equals freedom to do what you want, spend time with the people that you want to spend time with, whatever, do the hobby that you want to be doing. And for me, it always comes down to the ease of retrieval. There's nothing that drives me more crazy than wasting time looking for something, whether that's a piece of paper, whether that's, a shoe or my kid's soccer cleat or whatever it is. So anytime that I can streamline that efficiency to make that ease of retrieval quicker, that's my goal. So it's more than about the aesthetic. Although I do like the aesthetic, that's really just a symptom. The getting to the root of it is really what I feel has the lasting impact.
So in the spirit of getting to the root of it, Laurie, you're a speaker. You have a podcast show. You're now an author. You run an organized business. You are a parent of children at very challenging and lots of big decision ages that you're at. You've got a lot of things going on in your life and you're thriving in all different directions. Every now and then you have an off day. When you are not thriving, who or what activity do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Does sitting on my couch drinking Tito's count? Because that happens quite a bit. Not gonna lie.
I like it.
So
I like the way you pulled it together.
Okay.
And by the way, if that's your, do you put it on the rocks? You put it in a lime? What's your drink of choice?
My drink of choice is, and we actually have a name for it. My almost 15-year-old actually named it, which is kind of scary. So we call it a tea slate, which is Tito's on the rocks with club and a lemon.
I don't know if it's I just giggled because I've had people.
Because I have a child naming drinks.
Naming the drinks that I have had this answer on this show range from people who go into deep meditation and go on cleanses or do certain things, and you go straight to the bottle.
I go right to the bottle.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Yeah.
Whatever works, as they say. Just hopefully everything in moderation and not too much.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that's great. Okay, so the book, the Hot Mess, which is such a great title. I was going to ask really the question. A lot of times people they had the title and then they work their way back from the book. Who helped you come up with what has to be one of the best names and most catchy names of something that many women, more so than men, but many women can relate with?
Yes. So I actually came up with it myself. Probably, I don't remember. It was one of my, non-exciting moments, like walking the dog or in the shower or something like that. I had a million different working titles. So just in a nutshell, I didn't want to have another organizing book with just things being like simple and calm and all kumbaya. Because and that's great. And I mean, I have the name, my brand is Simply Be Organized. So I get it, but I wanted it to be realistic and I wanted to give people a reason to stop on the bookshelf, or if they're looking for a book on Amazon, I wanted to give them something to, go, oh. So my original working title, literally through the whole thing, was Get Your Shit Together and Other Life Lessons. But I figured that was really going to turn people off, and it was a little too harsh. As my husband said, that's a little too Laurie Palau. So I knew it wasn't going to be that, but I needed something else that would be, kind of catchy for people. And I always refer to myself as a hot mess. And I'm just like, what, I just can't get it together because I'm a hot mess. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of dawned on me to tie it all together, and that's how
Laurie,
it came out.
let's use this. This is a perfect segue to give all the plugs on where people could find you, could find the book, seek you out to have you speak to an organization, all the plugs that you want to share. We'll put it in the show notes, but coming from you is that much better.
Great. Well, the best place to go is my website, simply the letter B like boy, organized.com. From there, you can connect up with me on social media. I am Simply Be Organized. You can also find me just by my name, Laurie Palau. If you Google me, I don't think anything inappropriate is going to come up, so you should be good there. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, head on over when you're done to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast and subscribe to This Organized Life. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now,
that's where you can
before I make you have to run to the bottle, we have one more more question that was stressing.
I'm ready. I'm ready because I prepared.
So you're a fan of the show. You know what it's all about. Laurie Palau, your all-time favorite movie.
The Usual Suspects.
That's an awesome movie. Why were you even stressed in the least about this? And what do you love the most? And why do you connect so much to the movie The Usual Suspects?
I love everything about it. Well, I love the suspense, and you know what I don't love? I don't love that it took me I totally didn't get that. And meanwhile, my 17-year-old, when we watched it with her last year, we're 15 minutes into the movie and she's like, that's who it is. I'm not going to give it away in case anybody listening has not seen the movie, but she had it nailed in the first 15 minutes. I was like, are you kidding me? I just think it's a great movie, and it's one of those movies I can watch over and over again.
It is great. I love the true aha moment at the end when the
Yes.
head of police realizes and puts all the pieces together. It's brilliant.
Yes, it was.
I think I saw
brilliant.
someone with a license plate and it was doctored up. It took me a while to figure out, but it did say Kaiser Sose. And it was like in really chopped up letters. I'm like, that's what that is. Hopefully it wasn't him.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Laurie Palau, such a pleasure to have you on Thrive Loud. Always fun to chat with you. And thank you for sharing your hot mess and how you're getting everybody organized.
Well, thanks for having me. I will talk to you soon.
You got it. And to all the Thrive Loud fans out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.